All right, what's up, everyone? Um, just setting up here for uh, our monthly Q&A for anything investment banking recruiting related. So please hang tight. I'm going to just make sure that we're all connected here on all of our different platforms and that we can actually see all of your questions. If you guys can hear me, can you do me a favor and just drop hashtag live in the comments so that I know you guys can hear me. That way I'm not just talking to myself. I'm gonna get set up here on Instagram as well. 1 second. The title. Let's go live here. Okay, so I think I'm live on Instagram. Let me just check the LinkedIn as well as the YouTube and Facebook. So those are all the platforms that we're currently streaming on. So hopefully you guys can see this from at least one of those. As well as the YouTube. Okay, so we're on LinkedIn and we are on YouTube. Okay, great. Okay, so yeah, for those of you that are just tuning in, again, like I said, we're doing a monthly live stream. I do this live Q&A once a month at the beginning of the month, basically to just answer any questions that you guys might have about anything that's investment banking recruiting related, right? Obviously, right now, there are probably two main processes that are going on. For the rising juniors, a lot of you are still recruiting for your summer 2023 internships. And then for the rising seniors, you're probably currently doing your junior summer internship, but some of you are considering recruiting for a full-time offer at the end of this summer. And that interview process will probably start in early August. So we're about a month out from that. Okay. So those are probably like the two main things that we'll focus on the most today. But honestly, even if you're an underclassman, if you're a rising sophomore, rising freshman, you're just starting out and you're trying to plan ahead, you're trying to recruit for a sophomore summer internship or a freshman summer internship, and you want to, you have some questions on just how to do that in the most effective way, then feel free to ask whatever questions you have as well. All right. So Kevin said hashtag live. So great. Looks like you guys can actually hear me. So since it's working, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So anyway, that's the intro. And for those of you who don't know me or don't know Wall Street Mastermind, I guess let me introduce myself real quick so you know who you're listening to. And so you can decide whether you even want to listen to me. While I'm doing this, for those of you that are already familiar with who I am and what it is that I do, if you have questions that you want me to answer, feel free to just drop your question in the comments, whether you're on Instagram, you're on YouTube, you're on LinkedIn, you're on Facebook, doesn't matter. All right. But get your question into the queue. We usually get a lot of questions during these live AMAs. I'm probably going to be on here for about the next hour or so. I will try to get through as many questions as we can. Sometimes we can't get to all the questions, in which case I'll try to stay on either a little bit longer if there's not too many, or if there are more questions after that, then you might have to reach out to me separately. Okay. But while you guys are dropping the questions into the queue and I see them coming in, thank you guys for doing that. Like I said, just let me introduce myself real quick. My name is Sam. I'm the founder of Wall Street Mastermind. We've been around for about 5 years at this point. We've worked with 500 plus, almost 600 students during that time, primarily college students, but also master's students, MBAs, masters in finance, also recent grads. Some people come to us for help with lateraling to a different bank or lateraling from outside of banking into banking. But bottom line is we basically help people break into investment banking at the junior level, whether it's analyst positions, associate positions, or some internship positions. That's what we specialize in. And over the last 5 years or so, we've had an over 90% success rate. And so we're really, really good at what we do. A lot of people don't believe us and say there's no way that your success rate is that high. If it makes you feel better, we're also the only company in our space to have a money back guarantee offer, which means that if we enroll you into our program, and by the way, like we don't work with everybody, like we vet every single person. You have to apply if you want to work with us. But if we vet you and we decide like, hey, yes, you are someone that we want or we are confident helping, then we'll invite you into the program. And as long as you do the work that we ask you to do, if you don't get into investment banking, we'll give you 100% refund. Okay, so that's how crazy our offer is. No one else in our industry is doing it because, quite frankly, getting into investment banking is extremely hard to do. Just case in point, like Goldman Sachs last year, I think they had like 100 and oh, sorry, not even 100. They have more than that. Actually, I have the article right here. Let me just pull it up real quick so you guys can actually see what I'm looking at. So Goldman Sachs, for example, which is like the bank that everyone wants to get into, they had 236,000 applicants for internships for this most recent cycle, right? This article came out in April, so this was only 3 months ago, exactly 3 months ago, April 5th. 236,000 applications, record high, okay? Even just in America alone, they had 79,000 applications, and their acceptance rate was 1.5%, right? So this is like the level of acceptance rate that we typically see with the top investment banks, like Goldman Sachs, like other bulge bracket and elite boutique banks, even middle market banks. They might be, slightly higher, but like Jefferies, I think their acceptance rate is still only around 3%. So bottom line is it's very, very difficult to do, which is why no one is crazy enough to offer a money back guarantee on this kind of stuff. I'm certainly not crazy. As a business owner, I'm not trying to, do unprofitable deals where I have to refund people and stuff like that. So long story short, we will not work with you unless we're very, very confident. Okay. And we put our money where our mouth is. Now, with that said, we know not everyone can afford to work with us. So for those of you that can't afford to work with us, that's the purpose of this AMA, is that, I do this once a month to just try to kind of give back and also answer questions for the students that either we don't have the opportunity to personally work with, or maybe sometimes the students that want to work with us, but just don't have the resources to do so. So with that said, let's dive into it. That's a little bit about me. Hopefully that gives you a sense for, who I am and the fact that I know what I'm talking about when it comes to recruiting. And I see a lot of questions trying to build up. So let me start going through these. All right. So I'm gonna start out on LinkedIn. Romeo Pigeon asks, what resources can I use for interviews? Starting to apply to every finance 2023 intern position, but I'm going to be a senior. How are my chances? Thanks. Yeah, Romeo. So if you're a rising senior, ideally you would have been doing an investment banking internship this summer already, like summer 2022. Because the summer between your junior and senior year is when you want to be working at an investment bank. And then if you do well during that internship, then the bank that you intern with will then give you a return offer to come back at the end of your summer internship. So that's usually the best way to get in. That's how most people get their jobs. Now, it sounds like you're probably not doing an investment banking internship yet this summer. So if that's the case, it doesn't mean that you can't get into investment banking, but it does mean that your road will be a little bit harder, right? If you're already a rising senior, you're probably targeting then the full-time recruiting process, which, like I said, for the biggest banks, they'll probably start the interview process in early August, although some of them have already opened up applications for that. Those are for current rising seniors who are graduating in the class of 2024. So that's what you're going to want to be targeting first. In terms of how your chances, like, it's really hard for me to know that without like just knowing a bit more about you. Okay, so like I'm gonna have to probably just look at your resume at a minimum to see like, what your chances are. But what I would encourage you to do actually is like, if you want, you can actually book a call to speak with our team. And actually the way that works, by the way, for those of you that are like interested in working with us, or maybe if you're not interested in working with us, but you just want to get some advice, what you can do is you can first book a call with one of our alumni that's already gone through our program. So this is basically going to be someone that's like a junior or senior in college right now, an upperclassman who's already successfully gotten an offer in investment banking. And you can just have a free networking coffee chat with them. You can ask them whatever questions you want. And about recruiting, you can ask them how they got to where they are. All these alumni have offers from top banks already, by the way. So it's either like a bulge bracket or early boutique bank. And then you just have this networking chat, ask them for whatever advice you want, ask them about the recruiting process, ask them how they got to where they are today. And then like after that conversation, if you still are interested in working with us, then they can help you set up a call with our team. That's like the only way if you want to talk to our team. Okay. And if after you talk to them, you don't want to work with us, that's okay. Then you just get a free networking call out of it, and then take whatever advice you got, and then you can go do whatever it is that you want to do on your own, right? But like I think like talking to someone like that, like who's already gone through the process, they'll be able to give you a better idea for like, you know, what your chances are. And then like, you know, like I said, if you're so interested, then you can talk to us further and see how we might be able to help you. All right. So if you want to do that, Romeo, then you can do that by going to www.wallstreetmastermind.com/apply. Okay. Streets abbreviated to ST. So it's wallstmastermind.com/apply. All right. Our calendar is pretty full these days. There's a lot of people are booking calls with us. So first come, first serve. And then, you know, the longer you wait, the further out you're going to be booking. All right. Kevin asks, found friend of a friend in IB Barclays, but he said referrals are purely alma mater based. He said he doesn't know anyone that doesn't go to a target school. Should I feel discouraged? Yeah, that's absolutely not true. Like we have people inside of Wall Street Mastermind that have worked for Barclays and every other bank really, because we place people into every single bulge bracket and boutique bank at this point. But I can tell you for sure that there are non-target school people at every single bank. Like they're not going to be the majority. And I'm not saying this person is lying to you. I think it just might be that, you know, this friend of a friend personally doesn't know anyone that goes to a non-target school, but I think they're definitely misinformed. Okay. As far as referrals being like purely alma mater based, again, it sounds like this person goes to a target school. And so again, I don't think he's like deliberately lying to you, but what's really happening is that if you go to a target school, then at most of these big banks, you're going to have like a school specific recruiting team that's responsible for determining who from your school is going to get interviews. So, and the people on like your school's recruiting team is typically going to be made up of like a handful of alumni across different seniority levels that went to your school, but now currently work at the bank. So like if you go to a target school, your goal in terms of networking should be to like find out who these people are that are on your school's recruiting team. And then like basically setting up a networking call with them and trying to get on their good side and like getting them to one, know who you are, and two, getting them to like you so that like those people can single-handedly just decide like, yeah, this person's going to get an interview or not. Right. If you don't go to a target school, which it sounds like you don't, Kevin, then that doesn't apply because you don't have a like school specific recruiting team for your process. And so in that case, like what I would actually recommend is like, I mean, you have to network your way in, but a lot of times, like in this instance, the target school bankers sometimes might not even be familiar with how the non-target school bankers can get in or how the non-target school candidates can get in, right? So you want to make sure that you also talk to ideally like bankers that work there now that went to non-target schools. And you should be able to find people that work there now that are in non-target, that went to non-target schools just by doing research on LinkedIn. Like even just by doing that, you'll be able to validate that what he said is not true, right? That the fact that there are no non-target school people at Barclays, like that's absolutely not true. Barclays has like tens of thousands of employees, right? Like to say that every single one of them went to target school, like, I mean, that doesn't pass the sanity check, right? So no, I would not feel discouraged. If you're a non-target school student, like there's no need to be discouraged. You have a harder path into banking for sure. But like in Wall Street Mastermind, like only 45% of our students are target school students. That means that 55% of our students don't go to target schools. And we still have over 90% success rate, right? So you do the math, like it's absolutely doable. You just need to like know how to do it. And your margin for error is going to be smaller than your competition that's going to target schools, right? There's no doubt about that. All right. So hopefully that makes sense. Third question coming over to YouTube. Ash says, I'm at JP Morgan this summer for risk management, which ends in August 5th. However, I graduate in December 2023 and want to start applying for IB at JPM and other banks. When would be a good time to start applying? I mean, if you're graduating in December 2023, like your junior summer internship is technically summer 2023. So like you should be trying to get a summer 2023 internship in investment banking because risk management is more like mid office. It's not front office, right? Um, as for when you should start applying, like you should have started applying like months ago because the summer 2023 applications have been open for a while. Like for bulge bracket and elite boutique banks, most of them are like almost done. Like JP Morgan, like they're either done or almost done with summer 2023 recruiting. If they're not done, like they are like probably in the ninth inning. There are very, very few offers left, right? At this point, if you start applying for summer 2023, like you're most likely going to be applying to middle market banks, which are still very good banks, still reputable. These are still like a lot of them are still global banks with thousands of employees, if not more. But I would say like rather than being in the top 20, probably more so like in the top 50. Like that's the difference, right? But I would start applying like ASAP. And you need to start like applying, start networking, start doing the interview prep. Like you're definitely behind. Okay. Let me go to the next question. By the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to try to answer like a couple questions on each platform and then like just rotate. So done 2 on LinkedIn. I'm going to do 2 on YouTube. I'm going to like hop over to Instagram in a second here. So for those of you that are on IG, just hang in there and I'll try to answer your questions shortly here. So next question on YouTube, William Liu asks, hi, I'm a bit confused with this recruitment cycle. I thought that the 2023 recruitment cycle is long over for sophomores. No, William, like the 2023 recruitment cycle is not over. It's over for some banks. So like I said, like the elite boutiques are probably all done except for maybe Centerview. Bulge bracket banks, most of them are done. I would say like the few that we know are still giving out offers are typically like the European bulge bracket banks. They tend to recruit a little bit later or finish recruiting a little bit later. So like this would be like the UBS, Credit Suisse, Barclays, and Deutsche Banks of the world, right? But even those banks, like they've done super days, they've given out offers, but they're just not like completely done. So they might have like like more super days coming up, and some of them are also going to have more interviews in the fall for like they're more non-target schools and kind of like lower priority candidates. So it's definitely not completely done. Like middle market banks are still actively recruiting. So if you're still recruiting at this point, but you don't have an offer yet for summer 2023, like it's not time to give up. What I would do is you should keep recruiting as efficiently as you can. Like efficiency is the name of the game. Like the sooner you can get the offer, the earlier on in the timeline you can get the offer, typically the better the offer is going to be. And if you like whatever offer you end up getting for summer 2023, even if that's not like your top choice bank, like say you end up at a middle market bank, but you really want to work for a bulge bracket or for an elite boutique, then what you can do is wait until the end of your junior summer internship, and then you have an opportunity before going into senior year or as you're going into senior year to recruit for a full-time offer. And then at that point, like a lot of our students will end up going to an even better bank because they'll leverage their junior summer internship experience at the middle market bank or sometimes even at a regional boutique bank. And we have a lot of students that go from that level up to like a bulge bracket or elite boutique offer for full-time. And like ultimately the full-time offer is the one that really matters, right? Because that's the one that you're going to do after you graduate. Okay. So, okay, let me come over to Instagram real quick. So Modern with Luxury asks, how technical should I expect the Wells Fargo Super Day to be? Not any more technical than most other banks, right? I would say like elite boutique firms tend to be the most technical, but like Wells Fargo would be pretty similar with any other bulge bracket or middle market bank. So long story short is like you should still expect technical questions. It's still like the same major topics that you need to know, which are like accounting and 3 statements, valuation methodologies, mergers and acquisitions, and the leverage buyouts. Like those are the 4 main areas, right? But yeah, like hopefully you've been prepping for that. If you haven't been, you need to be. If you have been, then hopefully you're ready. All right. M1R.038 on Instagram asks, I'm a graduate international student at Pace University majoring in finance. I want to get into IB. I want to get into IB internship. I have classroom project experience in valuation, DCF model. When should I start applying? It depends on when your graduation date is. Like, again, we always got to work backwards, but whatever your graduation date is, you want to have a summer internship during the summer before you graduate. So like, for example, if you're graduating in 2024, May of 2024, or even December of 2023, then your last summer is going to be the summer of 2023, right? And if your last summer is the summer of 2023, then like I said, the application process for that is happening right now, right? If you're graduating later than that, like if your summer internship should be the summer of 2024, then we expect the applications for those to start opening up in probably like 4 or 5 months, like basically in Q4 of this year. So hopefully that makes sense. I don't know when you're graduating, so it's hard for me to give you the exact question, but that's how that's how I would think about it. Okay, you said for summer 2023 internship. Yeah, so for summer 2023 internship, it's the same answer that I just gave to Ash, who says he's asking like when he should apply for summer 2023 internships, and the question is like right now, or so the answer is like right now, right? It's been ongoing for months. What is the chances? And you asked, what are the chances as an international student to get an IB internship? It's harder as an international student because you need sponsorship for your visa, right? And so there are some firms that will sponsor and then some firms that won't. So one, you have a smaller pool of firms to choose from in the first place. But secondly, even the firms that will sponsor visas, they want to know that you're actually worth the trouble because they have to jump through like additional hoops just to hire you, right? So if you're only about the same level as another student who is a U.S. citizen or has a green card and doesn't require sponsorship, then quite frankly, it's all else equal. It's easier for the firm to just hire the other person, right? So the bar is going to be a little bit higher for you. The other thing too, also is like if you're looking for someone in 2023, like I said earlier, a lot of the firms I sponsor are actually bulge bracket and elite boutique firms, and most of those firms are done hiring. So at this point, you're probably looking at middle market banks. There are middle market banks that will sponsor too, but like the pool has now shrunk even more for you because you're starting later on in the timeline. So that will increase the degree of difficulty as well. Okay, because the number of places that you can actually get offers from, it's much lower, right? Okay, let me start. Let me come back to LinkedIn real quick. Phoenix Pittman asked, "Hey, what's up, Phoenix? Which banks are now starting 2023 apps?" Most banks, it's not starting. Most banks have started already or have been started for a while. It's more like which banks are still left, right? And so again, not to sound like a broken record, but at this point, it's bulge bracket and elite boutique banks are mostly done, and you're looking at mostly the middle market banks. If you guys don't know who the middle market banks are, there is a Vault. You can Google Vault Guide investment banking prestige rankings, where they do a survey every single year. They survey like 3,600 bankers that work on Wall Street and ask them to like rank all the banks. And I find that ranking is, I mean, all rankings are somewhat subjective, but I find that ranking is like pretty good. Like I agree with it for the most part. And so if you look at that list, like that list consists of pretty much all the banks that I would consider to be either bulge bracket elite boutique or middle market banks. Okay, like the bulge bracket elite boutiques, probably like the top 20 banks on there. There's like 1 or 2 exceptions, but for the most part, top 20 banks are bulge bracket and elite boutiques. And then like the next 30 banks that they list are what I would consider to be middle market banks. Okay, so hopefully that helps, Phoenix. Nicholas Yohei on LinkedIn asks, networking is your best friend. I broke an IB without any prior internships and attended a non-target school. There you go, right? Nicholas is absolutely right. You don't have to go to a target school to break in, but if you don't go to a target school, even if you do go to a target school, networking is really important. If you don't go to a target school, networking is even more important. Okay. All right. Let me go to the next question. Back to Romeo on LinkedIn. He asks, I'm very interested in PE and IB. What advice can you give to help me secure an offer as a rising senior? I'm looking for resources to study so I can further prepare myself for upcoming interviews. Yeah, I mean, like, look, in terms of resources, like I said, there's no better resource than Wall Street Mastermind. Like, I truly believe that, right? Like, whether you look at it by the success rate of the program or of the resource, or you look at the fact that, like, you know, the fact that we offer a guarantee, whereas no one else will, like, we stand by the results that we get, right? So if you're looking for a resource, then, you know, I mean, I'm not going to recommend you use any other resource but us, right? Obviously I'm biased, but like, again, I stand by what I said, right? So if you're looking for help, Romeo, like, honestly, I would just encourage you to book that free networking coffee chat first with one of our alums talk to them. That's like no obligation whatsoever, just networking with the upperclassmen. And like after that, decide for yourself. Like if you want to explore further, let's explore further. If you have no interest, then that's okay. Like you just get some free advice. Okay. So I would do that. www.wallstreetmastermind.com/apply. Okay. Streets abbreviated to ST. Let me come back to YouTube. Josh asks, do you have any advice for a bulge bracket placement process? I assume you're talking about like the group placement process, meaning like you've already gotten an offer and now you're like trying to get into the best group, right? So if that's the case, then I would say, yeah, like a couple things. One, you definitely want to like do research on which groups are the best at the firm. I would pick based on like, exit opportunities, how their placements have been for analysts that have left the firm or left the group, and where have they gone. The other thing is like, obviously, if you have a specific interest in a certain area or certain industry coverage or certain product coverage, then you want to try to target those groups. If your goal is to eventually go to the buy side, do things like private equity or hedge funds, then you also want to go for groups that are going to give you more like M&A type work as opposed to capital raising work. So like I would avoid groups like ECM, DCM. I would try to go for groups like M&A. Even financial sponsors is always a good one if you want to do PE because they cover private equity clients. Left fin can work sometimes depending on which bank it is. Some left fin groups do their own modeling, some don't. And then like if it's an industry coverage group, then that's going to be more case by case. Like some banks are very good at certain industries and not so good at other industries, right? And some industry coverage groups do their own M&A work and some industry coverage groups don't, right? And so like that's the part that you have to research. And then once you've done your research on which groups you actually want to target, then it's about you want to like make sure you network as much as possible with the people that already work in the groups that you want. Okay. And not just with like the analysts and associates and junior bankers. I would also try to talk to the senior bankers as well. A lot of times they have a lot of say over who they let into the group. You should also try to figure out who the staffer is in the group, like who's the junior banker staffer. Usually that's going to be like some mid-level banker, like sometimes it can be an associate, but usually I find it's like a VP or a director level person who staffs both the analysts and the associates at the same time. And so if you can find out who that person is, you want to definitely make sure that you talk to that person because that person probably has the most say over who they let into the group, right? And then from that point, like usually what's going to end up happening is like you're going to have to rank your top 3 choices. And then like the groups will all rank their top candidates as well. And then HR will go and do like this matching process where they try to like give everyone at least something in their top 3 choices and just make as many people happy as possible. And not everyone's going to get their top choice, right? But like they're trying to like solve for the optimal outcome where like no one is like super unhappy, but like that's not guaranteed, right? Sometimes people get groups that they don't want at all, right? And so like when you're filling out like your top 3 choices, there's going to be some game theory involved, right? Like if your top choice is like, for example, if your top choice is like Goldman TMT, and you know that like everyone is going to be going for Goldman TMT, you have to think about like, do you really want to rank that as your top choice, right? And similarly, like if you rank Goldman TMT as your top choice, but you know that that group is probably going to be like really hard to get into, and the chance of you getting in are lower, then like whoever you rank as your second choice, there might be like a really high probability of you getting into that group, right? And like depending on whether your second choice is really popular or not, like you might want to think about like how you place those next to each other, like relatively speaking. Like do you want to place the more popular one as the top choice, and then like, or do you want to put like the less popular one as your top choice? Like, so there's some game theory, right? And so if you guys don't know what game theory is, that's a whole other topic. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but you can go and Google it and try to read up on it. So but yeah, like long story short, do your research, make sure you're networking with as many people as you can, especially the staffer and some of the senior folks, and then take game theory into account when you're ranking people, so that you can get like the best placement. All right, so that's what I'll say about that. Let's see here. Okay, the other question here on YouTube by Abong Siopa. When does summer industry recruiting begin for rising sophomores, class of 2025? It depends. If you're talking about for sophomore summer internship, like for summer 2023, then some of those apps have already opened, especially if you're a diversity candidate. Like there are diversity programs where you can do a sophomore summer internship at these places. So diversity is defined as either female, if you're Black, Hispanic, or Native American, if you have a disability, if you are LGBTQ, or some firms consider like Army veterans, or not just Army, but like if you're a veteran, you have military experience. Some firms, not all, also consider like first-gen college students and things like that as diversity. But anyway, if you qualify for those, some of those applications are already open. Otherwise, if not, and you're talking about a junior summer internship for summer 2024, then like I said earlier, we expect those applications, the earliest ones, to probably start in like Q4 of this year. I would estimate like October or November of 2022. Okay, so hopefully that helps. Let me come back to Instagram real quick. Arya asks, is there anything a student entering college / leaving high school should do to prep for investment banking? Yeah, I think honestly, like if you're about to go to college, like right now as a just high school grad, there's not going to be much you can do in terms of like it's too early to network, and also like most people don't hire high schoolers for summer internships. So like the most productive thing you can do right now is like do research on your school, figure out like what all the relevant organizations are on campus. Like a lot of schools have like investment banking clubs or student-run investment management funds and like finance-related organizations. I don't know what school you're going to, Arya, but like joining some relevant organizations during your freshman year, like that's one of the most important things you can do as a freshman. Okay, but you gotta know like who's who. Also, like a lot of schools have multiple relevant clubs on campus, and like some are better than others, right? Like what you really want to know is like where do the members in that club typically end up going, right? Where do they typically get offers from? And you want to go to the clubs that have the best offer rate and end up at the best firms and things like that. And so like usually like the better the club is, the more selective they're going to be in terms of like who they let in, the more applicants they're going to have, and the harder it is going to be to get in, right? And so it's good to do your research beforehand. A lot of these clubs, like in my experience, you also have to like network with the people that are already in the club. And so like if you need to do that, like it's also good to start doing that early. But honestly, like a lot of these clubs, I would say like they really just model their own recruiting process for the club after how the investment banks recruit. So like all the skills that you need are like the same, right? Like you need to have a good resume. You need to have good networking skills. You need to network with the people that are already in the club. And they put you through like a pretty rigorous interview screening process. Where you have to be good at answering behavioral questions and technical questions. And so like, it's all the same prep that you had to do for recruiting, but just like, obviously it's not as hard as actual recruiting, right? So the bar is not as high, but you're also less experienced, right? And so like we help one of our students get, he goes to NYU, and a couple of years ago when he was a freshman, we helped him get into finance society at NYU, which is like probably the hardest finance club to get into at NYU. And they only take like, I think he told me they had like 200 plus applicants every semester, and they take like 8 people, right? So it's like, I mean, to beat out that many people, like you have to be like the best of the best, right? And they asked, even as a freshman, they asked him some very, very hard technical questions. But fortunately, like because we had already taught him everything, he joined our program kind of around the same time as you, like before he entered college, or like right when he entered college. So like he already knew a lot of that stuff, whereas most freshmen are like completely clueless, right? But like him getting into that club ended up helping him like a lot, right? Because now he was kind of like ahead of everyone else. He's in this like very exclusive network. That club has like basically 100% placement rate into banking, and they have a lot of alumni that are working in the top banks that came from NYU, right? And so he himself ended up getting a junior summer internship offer from an elite boutique bank. Okay, so that's probably like what I would be focusing on if I were you right now. All right. Hopefully that helps, Aria. Modern luxury asked again, how technical should I expect the Wells Fargo Super Day to be for IBD? First round barely had any. Yeah, I think I already answered this earlier. Like, there's going to be technicals, especially if you didn't get any for the first round. So I would expect them to ask technicals for the Super Day, but like it's not going to be any more technical than any other firm. And the topics are all the same, right? So make sure you study the 4 topics that I talked about. Okay. Shriman B asked, I'm an incoming college freshman. What should I be doing to prepare? And what is the timeline? Huh? That's funny. Same question that I just answered for Aria. So I would just refer back to that. All right. Travel or Travis LNYC asks, I'm interning this summer in wealth management with GS, and we have internal mobility applications that just opened up. Is GSIB still open, or should I target a different division for internal mobility? I mean, GS for what when you say is this still open? I guess you must be doing a sophomore summer internship. You know, asking if they're still open for summer 2023. I think my understanding is that they're done hiring for summer 2023 already externally, but that doesn't mean that they don't have any spots open, or they don't have any spots that they've kind of like preserved or allocated for these internal mobility apps, right? So I don't have visibility on like how many spots. And so I can't tell you, but like that's probably a question for HR or whoever in HR is responsible for internal mobility. Like I would ask them that question. It's like, do you guys actually have spots for IB? And if they say yes, then yeah, then I would go for it, right? Also, like, I mean, whether you should target a different division depends on like, do you want to work for any other divisions? Because your junior summer internship could very well end up becoming where you work for full time. So there's no point applying another division just to apply if you have no interest in working there. Okay. All right, let me come back over to LinkedIn. Quincy says 1.5% acceptance rate. Yep. That's what it is for a lot of the top banks for sure, like we showed earlier. Alexander Bacall asks, hey Sam, I've been learning all about investment banking for the whole summer and I have been taking this very seriously. I only have one experience that I've listed in my resume, which is the alternative investments and investment banking fellow at SEO career. In my opinion, this is more of an ongoing diversity opportunity, but I'm trying to add an actual investment banking internship work experience to my resume. Where do you think is the best place? Where are the best places to start? And which companies will most likely give me an offer in that department? Alexander, so like, yeah, SEO is not really an internship, right? It's more of a diversity program, like you said. So if what you're saying is like you don't have any relevant experience in finance yet, and you're looking to get some, then what I can say is like you got to start with the smaller firms, because like the first finance internship is always the hardest. It's like the chicken and the egg problem, right? Like you're trying to get finance experience, but most people don't want to hire you because you don't have any experience or any relevant experience. But like, how are you supposed to get relevant experience if you don't have any finance experience and no one will hire you, right? So that's where a lot of students get stuck when they're trying to get their first finance experience and get their foot in the door. But yeah, so you got to start by targeting smaller firms. Also, very likely that your first internship might have to be unpaid, which is not a big deal, right? It's just like you're just trying to do it for the experience anyway. So if someone's willing to hire you for an unpaid internship, then that's great. What we typically do for our students, like the ones that we work with in our program, is we can pretty much help you find your first relevant finance internship probably within 1 to 2 weeks on average. And it's like virtually guaranteed. Like we don't, it's not that like we have relationships with these firms and we can like force them to hire you, or we have a guarantee that they'll hire you, but like we have our own system that we developed and like a methodology for how to go about finding these jobs that we teach our clients. And like so far, we've had hundreds of students try it, and every single one of them has been able to find an internship, their first finance internship if they needed one, right? And so typically these internships will be like at a small private equity firm or a search fund. And basically what these funds have done is they've raised anywhere from 7 to 8 figures. So like usually millions of dollars, sometimes tens of millions on the higher side. So it's a very small fund, relatively speaking. And what they do is they take all this money that they've raised and they go out and they try to find a company that they can acquire. And they'll hold the company for about 5 to 10 years before and they'll try to improve the business and then they'll try to sell it. They're like flipping companies, basically, like real estate investors. They flip houses, right? They buy houses, they fix it up, and then they flip it and they make a profit. What these funds are doing is they're flipping companies. And so the reason why we really like these internships is that one, it's highly relevant experience because you're helping them with the M&A deal process, which is like what banking is really about. It's M&A, right? Two, it's easy to get. Like I said, most of our clients that had to get these had no prior relevant experience, and so and every single one of them are able to get these internships regardless. And so that's probably like one of the biggest things is that you kind of solve the chicken and the egg problem. Three, you can get them really quickly. So like I said, on average, it takes from the time you start applying and then going through the interviews and getting your offer. Sometimes multiple offers from multiple different funds, and you have to choose. But in our experience, that entire process is maybe 1 or 2 weeks, right? And then like last but not least, like I always say, like a lot of these internships, like they're unpaid, but like the beauty of it is that a lot of these internships, you can do them in person if you want, but they also have the option to be done remotely. So like if you don't go to school near like a major financial center like New York or something like that, and like you have to work remotely, or maybe even if you do and you just want to work remotely because it gives you a lot more schedule flexibility, you can fit it in between your classes and schoolwork and anything else you have to do. Like you're not clocking in, clocking out. Like as long as you get your work done, nobody really cares. And there's also a lot of flexibility. Like you can negotiate how many hours a week you want to work. Quite frankly, nobody even knows how many hours you work anyway, because as long as you get your work done, it's remote, so nobody really cares. So like there's a lot of things to like about these internships. So yeah, like like if you were working with us, like that's probably what we would have you do, or that's what we have most of our clients do to get their first internship. And like once you have that first internship, you have that first relevant experience. Now you don't have the chicken and egg problem, and then you can start kind of like moving upstream. You can start targeting like some investment banks, right? Maybe you start with regional boutiques, or maybe you go straight to middle market, or bulge bracket, or elite boutique, or whatever, right? But like you need to start somewhere and then build it up before you get to like eventually your end goal, which is like a top tier bank by the time you're recruiting for full time. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Abong Sopa asks when the application's open. Yeah, I already answered that earlier. Let me see what the next question is. Romeo Pigeon asks, what are prices for your services? Romeo, like that depends. So like the biggest thing that's different about us is that we work with every single student that comes in the program one-on-one, and we kind of customize the engagement based on what their needs are or what your needs are, right? So like there are a lot of factors to how much we would charge, but primarily like what you need help with is one, how much help you need is another one. Sometimes people have budgetary constraints, in which case we have to talk about that. But like, we'll always tell you what we can offer for like the amount that you are. We'll first tell you like what we think you need based on what you tell us you need help with. So we'll say, hey, like you could do this and this and this, right? And then we'll give you a quote. And like if that's works for you, then great, we do that. If that doesn't work for you and you want like something that's lower cost, then we will talk about like if that's possible, and if so, like potentially like what will we remove from the engagement? Like, okay, you can pay less if you don't want this or don't care about that or whatever. So like bottom line is it's highly customizable. But in general, like if you just want a range, like it's quite a big range really. Like we have stuff from as low as like a few $100s all the way up to like low 5 figures, right? And like everything in between. Okay, so but again, like what we're doing is we're virtually guaranteeing you a job that's going to pay you sometimes upwards of $30,000 to $40,000 over a summer internship, like a 9 to 10 week summer internship at a reputable bank. That's about how much money you're making, right? And then like if we're talking about the full-time offer, we're talking about getting a job at a reputable bank that would be paying you anywhere from $150,000 to $200,000 plus, right? Or some banks like Centerview, like we have a client going to Centerview, he's actually going to make over $300,000 plus just in his first year, right? $130,000 base, $180,000. $130,000 base, $150,000 bonus, so that's $280,000, and they get like a $50,000 sign on as well, right? So that's $330,000, which is pretty crazy, right? That's just the first year, right? Like you think about like over the span of your career, like what you guys have to understand is like the average college grad in the United States today is making $55,000 a year. Like you can go look that up. I'm not making this up. Just like average U.S. college graduation, so average U.S. college graduate salary. Like you look at that up, it's $55,000, right? So if you want a job that's going to pay you upwards of 3 to 6x more just in your first year, then like that gap only widens over time, right? Like you're gonna have a long career, was 10, 20, 30, 40 years, right? You do the math yourself. Like, even if it's an extra 100K a year, like how much more is that worth? Right. So anyway, like that's a long story short, like a wide range of prices that are possible. But like if you're looking for something that's like $100, $200, like we don't have anything that low. Okay. Then there are a lot of other cheap or free resources out there that don't work as well, but they're cheap for a reason, right? Like you get what you pay for. So, Bahidi asks, I've landed interviews, but have not been able to get past second rounds or super days. Any ways in which I can best improve my technicals? Yeah, Bahidi, I mean, so it depends on like how you've been doing it so far, right? I don't know how you've been going about your prep. So it's hard for me to say like what you need to improve. But like in my experience, the way most people are studying their technicals is they take like one of the popular guides, maybe like Breaking into Wall Street or Wall Street Oasis or even like Wall Street Prep. Like those are probably like the biggest companies out there with the most popular guides. So like 400 questions guide, right? And then people just like memorize the answers to the 400 questions, and then hope that if they go into an interview, that they're going to get like the exact questions that they've already memorized, right? In reality, like that almost never happens, right? Because a couple of things, like the interviewers now, they know that everyone's reading those guides. In fact, they themselves probably read those guides when they were coming up. Like these guys have been around for like 10 plus years, and a lot of them have barely changed at all over the years because they don't need to change, right? Like the guide is just a static guide. And so like they know the exact questions that are in there. They also know that like every single student that's interviewing, like they've already read those guides. So it doesn't really help them to just ask the exact same questions in the guides, right? And so what we've seen interviewers do actually is like they'll deliberately go out of their way to ask questions that are not in the guides, to ask questions that are harder than what's in the guides, but to ask questions that cannot just be memorized. Like they can design the question in a way such that you can't memorize the answers. Like there's no way you can prepare for it ahead of time aside from like actually understanding the concepts. And so like that's the difference, right? Between like how we prepare our clients and how most people are doing is that we're teaching our clients just like the underlying concepts, and we don't make them memorize any guides or any like predetermined questions, right? We tell everyone like you got to get to the point where if you can explain a technical concept to your younger brother who's in 6th grade who has no experience or no financial knowledge whatsoever, that's the test for whether you've gotten to the level that you need to be at to be able to pass these technical interviews. So if you can't do that, if you can't teach these concepts to like a total beginner, then you're probably not ready. Okay. The other thing too is also like, okay, well, if the questions in the guides aren't actually what's like being asked in these interviews, then like how am I supposed to be prepared? Like how do I not get caught off guard? Right. And so like I'm gonna share my screen real quick. Like this is like an interview questions database. You'll see like hundreds of entries in here. And it's sorted by alphabetical order by the firm name. So you'll see like all the who's are pretty much in here. And sorry, for those of you that are on Instagram, you probably can't see this right now. And I don't know how to turn my camera around. So maybe it's this. No. Okay. Sorry. I don't know how to turn my camera around on Instagram, but you're just gonna have to, oh, here we go. Yes. All right. So this is like the database I'm scrolling through. So you'll see that like there's Allen Company, right? Ares, Apex, Bank of America, what else? Barclays, Blackstone, BlackRock, right? Bridgewater, Citi, Cantor, Centerview, Credit Suisse, whatever. Like, so all the who's who, all the like biggest firms are in here. And these are like actual interview questions that have been asked in actual interviews, down to like the office location, the group, what round was it? Super Day, first round, what year was it? And like we got hundreds of these entries in here that are crowdsourced from the hundreds of clients that we've had that have already gone through this process. Okay. And so like what our students are doing is they're basically looking at these questions before they go into the actual interviews to get a sense for like, oh, these are the type of questions that this firm actually asks, right? And like, again, this is how we know the questions are very different from the ones that are actually in the interview guys, because we see the actual questions. Like our students tell us what questions they've been asked, right? And so like, this is a huge competitive advantage as well, right? And this is why like being a part of a network like Wall Street Mastermind, where you're recruiting, not just on your own, but you're recruiting with like a lot of other students and also like even alumni that are a year ahead of you, 2 years ahead of you, that have already gone through the process. Like you don't have to guess at these things, right? And also like the fact that people actually in our program actually take the time to write down these questions and pass it down to like future years, like that doesn't happen in most places, right? And so like you have to find like a really collaborative group of people that are willing to help each other out for you to have that kind of advantage. So like those are some things that you could do that are probably different from what you're doing now, Ahidi. So hopefully that makes sense. And then like, I guess the one thing I haven't touched on is like financial modeling courses. Like I would not, if you're spending time on financial modeling courses, I would not, I repeat, I would not spend time on financial modeling courses before you got in the job. Those are useful after you've gotten an offer, before you actually start the job, because they teach you how to do the job, but they don't actually like teach you how to answer these questions in an interview setting. Like you will not be asked to build a financial model in your actual interviews. I can guarantee you that. Okay. We've had clients interview with all the biggest banks, bulge bracket, elite boutiques, middle market banks. None of them put their junior candidates through like financial modeling tests. It just doesn't happen. So you can learn all the formulas, you can learn how to link stuff up, whatever. Like that is a very different skill set than like being able to explain this stuff verbally. So it's just like, if you're doing that, I would not waste your time with that for now, because you're spending time on the wrong things. All right. Hopefully that helps. Rushil Jha asks on YouTube, can you talk about the HSBC process? If you pass your test and receive communication about Super Day, should you still be networking? If you pass your test and receive communication about Super Day, by communication, you mean like they invited you to Super Day? I mean, if you've already been invited to Super Day, you probably don't need to be networking still. Like networking, the purpose is really to like get the referral for the interview invitation. But if you already passed and you already have the Super Day, I would just primarily focus on your interview prep. Okay. Hopefully that helps. Travis Lee asks, are EB and BB applications still open? If you're talking about summer 2023, like I said earlier, you probably joined late, but most EBs are done, with the exception of maybe Centerview, and bulge bracket banks are pretty much mostly done as well. The ones that are still hiring are, I think, the European bulge bracket banks like Credit Suisse, UBS, Barclays, Deutsche Bank. They've definitely all had Super Days already, and they've also all given out at least some offers, but I think they might still have more offers to give out. So they're not like completely done, but they're like in the 8th or 9th innings. Okay. And then like, otherwise it's like mostly middle market banks at this point, but you didn't ask about that. So I don't know if you care. Let me come back to Instagram. CSQ Ratch asks, current finance student at non-target 3.5 GPA. Can I still recruit for a summer 2023 summer analyst role graduating December 2023? Yeah, you can. As long as the firm's still recruiting, you can still recruit. Like, again, just saying non-target 3.5 GPA, like, I mean, that doesn't disqualify you for anything. I would need to see like the rest of your resume though, to be able to give you a better assessment for like how good your chances are. Okay. WMC fail 3 top 5 bulge bracket banks in 30 seconds. I mean, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan. I would say after that, it's probably like Bank of America. I mean, 4 and 5 is like getting a bit more subjective, but Goldman, Morgan, and JP are definitely the top 3. I would say 4 is probably Bank of America, and then 5, maybe Barclays or maybe Citi. It's one of those two. I mean, yeah, I would say those are probably top 5. And then like you have like the European bulge bracket banks that come below that. I mean, Barclays is European, but they're probably in the best shape out of the 4 European bulge bracket banks. So Hopefully that makes sense. But honestly, it's more nuanced than that. Like when you're joining a bulge bracket bank, it's not about just the bank that you're joining. It's also about like, are you joining the best groups? Like, I'd rather be at a great group at a slightly lower bank than the worst group at like a slightly higher ranked bank. Because ultimately, like it's your group that matters. Okay. Let's see what else. Arturo asks, any advice for international students with CPT/OPT, not permanent residence? Yeah, sure. So in terms of advice for people that have CPT or OPT, one, start early because, like I said earlier, like you have less options, right? Like not every bank actually sponsors, and so the ones that do sponsor are basically the ones that you have like the most realistic chance at. If you and then like aside from starting early, the other thing too also is like I said earlier, the bar is higher for international students, so like you can't just be like about the same as your competition that's has a U.S. citizenship or a green card, because if you're about the same, it's easier for them to just hire the other guy. You have to be better than them, so you have to be like have a better resume, you have to be better at networking, you have to be better with your behavioral answers, and you have to be better at your technical. So like you have to be better in like almost every way, right? Which again goes back to starting earlier, because the earlier you start, the more prepared you're going to be, the more likely it is that you're going to be better and more prepared than your competition, right? So like those would be like the two biggest pieces of advice that I could give you. But I would say also like, because you're more limited in terms of the firms that you can apply to, like in the beginning when you first start networking, like you also want to like always ask the people that are working at the firm, or maybe you ask HR. You want to first figure out like who's actually sponsoring visas and who's not, because you want to focus most of your efforts on the ones that are actually sponsoring visas. Okay. There are also some websites out there that you can use to look up like which firms actually sponsor visas, which like we share inside of our program, but you could probably just also find them yourself as well. I don't remember the names off the top of my head, but like we have them in our networking modules. But like you can use those websites to kind of like triangulate and figure out like, okay, these are the firms that typically sponsor, and put more of your networking efforts on those, right? And last but not least, like depending on if you have a 1 year OPT or 3 years of 3 years of OPT, if you have 3 years of OPT, there are some loopholes that I won't get into here, because again, there are loopholes, and I don't want to be publicly responsible for sharing these things. But we do share them with like people that are in our program, but also like, I mean, even if you're not in our program, like if you want to hear, I just don't want to say it publicly here. Again, you can book a call with our team, and like our team can share with you what the loophole is. But basically, like if for people, we have had students that had 3 years OPT because they're STEM majors, that have gotten offers from firms that don't typically sponsor visas. Okay. It doesn't work 100% of the time, but it has worked sometimes. So like, long story short, if you have a 1 year OPT, you might want to consider like switching majors to something that will give you 3 years of OPT, because then it could potentially open up more doors for you. Okay. So again, if you guys, if this applies to you and you want to know what the loophole is, like I would just encourage you to book a call with our team, and we're happy to tell you on the call. All right. Hopefully that helps for all of you out there that are international students. One Master Uruguay 0 says, didn't GS open up summer analyst apps on July 1st? How are they already finished recruiting? No, they did July 1st for the last 2 or 3 years, but this year they actually opened up earlier. They've been open since April 1st. So like, that's the thing, is like, if you're not in the loop, like you might not know these things, but like every firm, like they change their application start date from year to year, and more often than not, they move it up earlier rather than later. Okay, so that's something where it's like, I mean, if you're in the Wall Street Management My program, we just track all the applications for you, and we tell you exactly when they open, so you don't miss out on this kind of stuff. All right. Big Ugly asks, is sales and trading require hardcore finance knowledge? I'm not sure what you mean by hardcore finance knowledge, but like I mean, yeah, I guess I would say so. Sales and trading, like it's different. It requires a lot more like market knowledge, like knowing what's going on in markets, being able to like, to be able to trade successfully for like whatever asset class you're focused on, depending on the desk that you sit on. Like, yeah, I would say like you have to be like genuinely interested in finance and you have to like really follow it. Okay. Pedro asks, I'm really curious what are the prices. Yeah, again, Pedro, I think I'm not sure when you joined, but I covered this earlier. So I don't want to like rehash myself too much, but really varies. It's customized based on individual, it's based on what you need, how much help, what help you need, how much help you need, and also like sometimes like if you have like budget constraints and whatnot. And so like if you want like a more accurate quote, like we just need to have a conversation with you first to learn more about those things. Like you gotta answer some questions for us, and then we'd be able to give you a more accurate quote. So again, for those of you that like want to know prices, like honestly, best thing to do is like just first book a free virtual coffee chat with our alum, not even with our team, with an alum in our program that has gone through the recruiting process already. We want you to talk to the alum first. It's a free networking call. You can ask them for whatever advice you want about recruiting, about how they got to where they are. They've all gotten like offers from top banks already. And like after you have a conversation with them, if you still want to talk to us, if you still want to learn more about the program, if you still want to get a quote, then they can help you set up a call with our team so that we can like give you that. But like after you talk to them, if you're like, oh, this sucks, or this is like doesn't seem that helpful or whatever, like or you know, I don't want to work with Wall Street National, like then it's cool. Like then we don't have to follow a call, but like you just get a free networking call out of it. Okay. So like at a minimum for all of you that are watching this right now, I would encourage you to at least just book that free virtual coffee chat. Like it's a free networking chat with someone who's already gone through the process. Like there's no reason not to take that call. Okay. It's not a sales call. It's just like, you're just talking to like a junior or senior that's in college. All right. Who's like already gone through the process. So highly encourage you to do that. Josh Porter 195 asks, what are some middle market banks you would suggest targeting? Yeah, again, I would go look up the Vault Guy investment banking prestige rankings. There's a top 50 list on there, like I said earlier. There are some exceptions to this, but for the most part, I would say like top 20 banks on there on bulge bracket and elite boutique, and then like the next 30 that they list there, those are like all middle market banks. So you can just look at that list. It's like too long to list off all of them right now. Okay. Let me come back to come back to LinkedIn and YouTube. Romeo asks, is it possible applying for an internship summer 2023, getting a return offer afterward as a senior? If not, would it be worth doing a fifth year so I could be more prepared for applications and interviews? Yeah, you can't apply for summer 2023 if you're already a rising senior. But what you're suggesting, which is if you delay graduation and doing a fifth year, can you then apply for summer 2024? And the answer is yes. So you you don't actually have to do a full fifth year. Like right now, if you're supposed to graduate in May 2024, you can just delay graduation by a semester instead of a full year. So you don't have to pay for the full year, right? But if you delay graduation to December of 2024 instead of May 2024, now your last summer in school is summer 2024, and then you can apply for that. So yeah, we have had students that have used the delaying graduation tactic to buy themselves more time and also to make themselves eligible for the summer internship. So yeah, that could work. But like, again, there's trade-offs, right? Like you have to pay for an extra semester of school. And so it depends on like if that's affordable for you or not. All right. But if it is, then you can certainly do that. Rushoja asks, which middle market banks are still recruiting? We don't have like an exact list of which middle market banks are recruiting or not. We just know that generally speaking, most of the banks that are still recruiting right now are middle market banks, because we're seeing like what interviews our clients are still getting and who's still giving offers. And that's kind of like how we have that kind of information. But it's not like these firms are telling us like, hey, Sam, by the way, like we're done recruiting. Like we don't get that type of intel, right? So it's kind of a black box by design. Nobody, like there is no, people are always asking me like, hey, is there like a centralized place where it shows like all the apps that are still open or all the firms that are still recruiting? And the answer is no. Like even for competitive purposes, like these firms don't share that type of intel with each other. Like they don't want their competition to know where they're at in the recruiting process. So they certainly aren't going to let the candidates know, right? And so unfortunately, like the best way to figure that out, who shows like you're just gonna have to network with the people at the firm, like I said. And you can, it can be bankers, it could be people in HR. For this type of stuff that's more like timeline related, I would actually say probably even better to network with people in HR because they'll have a better sense. But normally I would recommend most networking conversations happen with bankers. So like, this is kind of like the one exception to that. Okay. Which middle market banks are still recruiting? Okay, so let me go to the next one. Rushoja asks, is Citi still recruiting? Same answer here. You're gonna have to network with them. I think they're mostly done, but I do know that, like, for example, and this is just again through our students in the program and people that have gotten offers from Citi. I do know like one of the regional offices that's planning on, not New York, but one of the regional offices. There might be more, but the one that I know about, they're planning on doing one more super day in August for their non-target school clients. And they're probably going to hire like 2 or 3 more people during that round. Okay. So that's that. Max Zhang asks, thoughts on keeping specifically the tech group, good possibilities to recruit for PE from there, or better to lateral to a BB. Yeah, my understanding is that KeyBank's tech group is not like super strong. And so I don't think that it would have like the best placements, to be honest, into PE. And so, yeah, my recommendation is like, if you want to recruit for PE, I would probably suggest that you try to lateral to like a bigger bank first. The bold racket league boutique banks are always going to have way better exit opportunities than middle market banks like Key. Okay, so that's kind of just how it is. So hopefully that helps. Let me come back. Travis Lee asks, and by the way, guys, like we're a little bit over the hour already. I still see a bunch of questions in the queue, actually. I will try to stay on a little bit longer and answer as many of these as I can, but I might not be able to get through all of these. So I'm going to try to speed through the rest of these answers. Okay. Travis says, I'm interning this summer in wealth management with GS, and we have internal mobility applications that just open up. Is GS to open? Oh, I think I already answered this earlier. So you might have asked this question twice. So let me go somewhere else. Detroit Gill says networking means dick riding. Yeah, I guess you can say that. That's kind of funny. No comment, I guess. Cesar Alfonso. I mean, I'll make one comment on that. You can call it dick riding, but like honestly, it does require a good amount of skill, and you have to be very deliberate about the strategies and the tactics that you use. So I don't want to oversimplify and say, oh, it's just dick riding. Like there's a lot of good things you can do and a lot of like really bad things that you can do that hurt you, right? Cesar asks, does networking help your chances of getting into one of the BB's diversity programs? Short answer is yes. Networking always helps. All right, Cesar. Josh asks, what feelings do you have about capital markets, specifically left in capital markets? Is it possible for me to lateral to another group or exit to PE still? Capital markets, if it's like ECM and DCM, they're not great for moving into PE. If it's left fin, you could potentially still recruit into PE. It depends on the group that you're, the bank that you're at. Like some banks, left fin groups, run their own models, which is what you want. And some banks, left fin groups, don't run their own models, and they just kind of outsource the modeling to like the financial sponsors group or whatever group they're working with on the deal, or the M&A group. So if that's the case, then that's not as ideal. But like whether you have exit ops to PE, like you should just look at like what the past analysts in that left fin group have done, right? Like when they left the program, did any of them get into PE? That's going to be your best indicator. And if not, and your goals to get into PE, then yeah, you're probably going to want to like lateral to like a different group. Okay. Kevin asked, is it risky to get a networking call with a director or global head? Because if you mess up, you will be automatically rejected. No, I wouldn't say it's risky. I don't think it's any more risky than networking with anyone else. I don't think you're automatically rejected. I think if you have a bad networking call, like, I mean, chances of them going like blacklisting you is relatively low, in my opinion. So, no, I wouldn't say so. Camille asks, I'm currently in real estate banking at Wells Fargo. How can I transfer to IB? Is that real estate investment banking, or is that like when you say real estate banking? I assume that's real estate investment banking and not like mortgage banking or something. So I mean, in terms of transfers, like, I mean, the best, I mean, it's either transferring to like other IB groups in your bank that have openings, in which case, like a lot of times these jobs will be posted. Um, but like, transfer internally is always a little bit tricky because then you have to navigate through like the internal politics, like of like, oh, you don't really want your group to find out that you're trying to transfer in case you don't get the transfer, then you kind of like stuck in like no man's land, right? And so like probably the better thing to do is like if you want to be an IB is to like apply for some lateral positions at other banks is probably what I would do personally. Um, and so for that, it's like some banks will post their lateral positions on their careers page, and then otherwise, like if they don't, a lot of it also sometimes happens through networking. Like they have lateral positions, but they don't post it publicly. So you have to like know people, you have to be on their radar. Okay. Sammy Carter knows I'm a junior. Should I apply to these clubs? I mean, yeah, junior is usually like pretty late to be joining clubs, but like, yeah, certainly still can. Like, it still will, give your resume a boost if you need more relevant experience. So yeah, I would say like there's no harm in joining. Let me go to the next question. Brian Zhu asks, currently a rising sophomore at a target, interning at our REPE firm, had an internship in a small PE firm. What should I be preparing in terms of technicals and any networking tips? What you should be preparing in terms of technicals is the same for topic areas. So like accounting and the 3 financial statements, valuation methodology. So like trading comps, present transactions, discounted cash flows, equity versus enterprise value. That's all under like the valuation umbrella. There's also merger math, so like accretion, dilution, and then there's leverage buyouts. Like those are like basically like the 4 major topics that you need to know, regardless of your background, right? In terms of networking tips, like, I mean, when you say any networking tips, like honestly, that's a very vague question. So yeah, I have a lot of networking tips. I mean, our networking training programs are like 10 hours long. Like that's how much I can say when it comes to like, networking best practices. But I think without like more specific question, I mean, at a high level, I'll just say like, I will work backwards and start with like how many referrals you want to get. And you need to like track all of your conversion stats in terms of like how many people you talk to actually refer you typically. And then like how many people that you reach out to typically even talk to you, right? So you can work backwards to like figure out how many people you actually need to reach out to. And it's almost kind of like a funnel, right? Like that's how we teach it inside our program anyway. So like for most of our clients, if they're applying to like 20 firms, like all the bulge bracket and league boutiques, let's say the top 20 firms, and they're trying to get like 2 referrals at each bank, that means they need 40 referrals. 40 referrals, let's say like if their conversion rate, their referral rate is like 1 out of 5 people that they talk to actually like refer them, that means they need to talk to 200 people, right? And then you talk to 200 people, let's say like if their response rate on their emails is like 50%, that means they need to send out to at least like 400 emails to get to the 200 people, right? Like that's just like an example, but like those numbers are made up. You need to figure out what it is for you. Okay. Phoenix asks which small firms are good for the first experience. I mean, I kind of already talked about this earlier, Phoenix, but like, so I don't know. I would just refer back to that answer for the sake of time, right? Leah Block, how do you apply for diversity programs and what are they like? So all diversity programs will be posted on the firm's websites. So you just go look up the careers page for all the bulge bracket, elite boutique, even a lot of middle market banks. They usually have like a diversity section, and they'll have like whatever diversity programs they typically run on that page. Now, whatever diversity programs they have may not typically be open for applying yet. Like, so sometimes you might find like the older application for like the previous year, but you can still look at it to see like what the application is like. In terms of what they're like, I mean, it varies. Some are like just like short events that are a few days, some are like a couple weeks, and there are some that are like full blown summer internships that are like 9 or 10 weeks, which is like exactly the same as junior summer internship. But regardless of what they are, like it's always good to get in if you can, and if you can, a lot of them will like give you an opportunity to be fast tracked to the super day opportunity for your junior summer internship. Okay, so it's almost like you get to cut to the front of the line, and you get like one extra opportunity to get that junior summer internship interview. Okay. Phoenix asks, how would you find them if they're so small? How would they show up in searches? Phoenix, I mean, honestly, it's a lot of grunt work, but like the way we've done it in our program is like we've already compiled, like we have a database, for example, with like 1,000 plus of like the small investment banks out there and what their names are, what locations they have offices in, what are their websites, what are their email syntax, like contact information. So like we've done a lot of the grunt work for the students in our program. So like you can either do it yourself, or if you join our program, then like we've already done it for you, and it just saves you a bunch of time. Okay, so that's kind of like the answer to that one. He says that helps a lot. Yeah, you're right. I've been spending too much time on trying to model. Yeah, see, like that stuff doesn't come up in the interviews. Nobody tells you that, by the way. All these companies that sell financial modeling courses. Let me go on my little rant here. Like all the companies that sell financial modeling courses, they always like try to make everyone think that all you need is like to learn how to build financial models, and you're gonna like ace these interviews. It's like so far from the truth. The reason they sell financial models is not because it's like how you pass interviews. The reason why they sell financial modeling courses is because that's one thing where they can create it one time, record it one time, and sell it like thousands or tens of thousands of times without needing to lift the finger, right? It's almost like passive income for them. But like honestly, it's like screwing a lot of you over because you're being misled, you're being brainwashed into thinking like, oh, this is the best way to prep. Like, no, that's the way to prep for how to do the job. That's not the way to prep for how to get the job. So you're putting the cart before the horse. Like those are two different skill sets that you need to learn, right? So please, 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 please do not fall for that, right? Again, I'm not saying there's no place for financial modeling courses. You can take those after you receive the offer and you know you're going to be working in banking. Then from there, you still have a few months before you start the job to actually learn how to build financial models. But until then, focus on learning how to get the job. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Josh asks, what feelings, good, bad, indifferent, do you have about capital markets? Well, left in capital markets. Okay, yeah, I answered this earlier already. Leah asks, also, would experience / internships in other front office roles, such as sales and trading, asset management, et cetera, help with getting the IB, or should we be focusing? It looks like it got cut off. I don't know what the complete question is, but yeah, I mean, they can help, but like it's not the most relevant, right? Like ideally you do more transactional work, like internship experience at an investment bank, even if it's a smaller one, or a private equity firm, or something like that. That's usually going to be the most relevant and the most helpful for breaking an IB. So I would try to focus on those as opposed to like other types of front office roles, to be honest. Okay. And then here I think those are all the questions on LinkedIn and YouTube. Let me finish up on Instagram here. I'll do two more. I see Shrimon B asks, how should I start learning accounting and technicals? I mean, there's so many ways to do it, right? Like we kind of talked about it earlier, but like, most people, they use like interview guides or financial modeling courses. I already talked about why I would not use financial modeling courses. Interview guides, you could do that. But like typically like what ends up happening is you end up memorizing a lot of answers without actually truly like understanding it. So the best way that I think, it's the best way to learn anything in general is to like have someone who's already a subject matter expert teach it to you, right? Just like how you learn in school. You learn from your professors, you learn from your TAs, that they're explaining these concepts to you. That's what we do in Wall Street Mastermind. So like that's the third option if you want. So I think is the best option, right? But it's not for everyone. And like I said, you have to apply if you want to work with us. So if you do, like, feel free, set up a call with us. Like I said, BBBBX17 asks, do the courses I take on Udemy can increase probability of becoming an intern? I mean, sure. I don't know. I haven't taken these courses on Udemy, but like a lot of the Udemy courses are like either free or like $10 or $20. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but you got to understand that like typically people that are selling courses that are that cheap, like they didn't put that much effort into creating a course because they're selling it cheap for a reason, right? And so like, can it increase your chances? Yeah, sure. I'm sure it can. Is it the best way to do it? Like, no, I'm pretty sure it's not. And also like, if all it took was for you to like take a $10 course or $20 course, and that's going to get you a job that pays like 150, 200K, 300K right out of college, like you got to think about it, right? Does that make sense? Like it's probably too good to be true. Like everyone would already have done that. Everyone would already be in banking, right? So I would suspect like the percentage of people that just solely rely on Udemy courses to get into banking, you'll see like it's very, 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 very low. Like I'm almost positive. Okay. So anyway, guys, those are all the questions. We've we're way over time, but I guess I'll just end on this note, which is hopefully you guys found this helpful. If you guys want to work with us, like I said at the beginning, we place students in every single bulge bracket and lead boutique bank. We are the only company out there to offer a money back guarantee. We have an over 90% success rate regardless. And we are just the best at what we do in this entire industry. And hopefully, you kind of got a taste for the knowledge that we have through this AMA today. By the way, if you come into our program, like I am personally going to be coaching you, every single one of you, which is why we don't take everyone. I don't have bandwidth. I don't have the time to coach every single person. I can only coach a very small group of people at a time. But like, if you like the way I explain things, if you like the way that that I kind of like teach, and if you think that I know what I'm talking about, and you want to work with someone like me to basically virtually guarantee that you're going to graduate with a job in investment banking that's going to pay you anywhere from $150,000 to $200,000+, sometimes upwards of $300,000+, at some of the top firms in the world, then again, it's by application only. First step is for you to speak to an alum from our program who's already gone through the process, and it's going to be an upperclassman, junior or senior, who's already gone through the recruiting process successfully and at a top bank. And they'll just get on a free networking coffee chat with you and talk to you about whatever you want, answer whatever questions you have about the recruiting process, about how they did it, how they got to where they are, how to overcome the challenges that you have. You can ask them about the program if you want to, right? Like whatever you want, that's your call, right? After that, if you still want to work with us, you're still interested in exploring further, then you can ask them to set you up for a follow-up call with our team. And then we'll get on with you and learn more about your situation, see how we can customize a package for you that makes the most sense based on all the different factors that we talked about. And if you're a good fit, we'll invite you in the program, and then we'll go out and get you this job. Okay. So if you want to do that, you can go to www.wallstreetmastermind.com/apply. It's wallstmastermind.com/apply, and that'll pull up a calendar that allows you to book a time with one of our successful alumni. Okay. So last question from Truman Q says, where can I find a recap of this live? Truman, there should be this should be saved on this Instagram profile for this account that you're following now after we get off. So you should probably be able to go back and watch it. But like probably an easier way to do it even then is you can go on our YouTube channel, just look at Wall Street Mastermind, or you can go on my LinkedIn profile, which is Sam Shah. You can search for my name. And then, or you can also go on, like we have a private Facebook group, but any of those places will have a recording of this session on there, and then you'll be able to watch it. All right. Anyway, guys, hopefully this helps. We've been on for almost an hour and a half. I always enjoy doing these for you guys at the beginning of the month. We'll be back again in early August for the next one. But in the meantime, hopefully, we get to talk to some of you guys. And then if any of you join the program, I look forward to working with you guys. Otherwise, if not, totally cool too. I wish all of you the best of luck with your recruiting journeys. And feel free to reach out on LinkedIn and just message me. And send me a connection request, message me if you have any questions, one-off questions. Happy to answer them. And try to be, I get a lot of messages actually, but I try to be as responsive as I can. Okay. All right, guys, that'll be it. Thanks for tuning in. Talk to you guys later. Bye.